It was the children who found the drowned man approaching through the sea. At first they mistook him with an enemy ship, but they recognized the human when it washed up on the beach. They played with him on the beach all afternoon. After that, someone saw them and alarmed their village. While carrying the body to the village, the man who carried him noticed just how tall and big he was. He assumed his height was due to all the water that went through his bones. The man was covered in mud, so they couldn't see his face, but they didn't need to see it to know that he was a stranger, because their village was so small that everyone already knew each other. That night the men of the village left their homes to ask around who this man was, while the women stayed to look after the deceased man. They cleaned his face from mud and removed the underwater stones in his hair. That's when they noticed that he looked like he came from faraway oceans, and also that he did not look like all the other drowned men they saw before. He had a kind look on his face that was attached to his tall, muscular body. In fact, there was no house nor a cloth big enough for him. They sewed him some clothes so that he would continue his dignity even after death. As they sewed, they started to think of him. How much of a magnificent man like him would he if he lived in their village? Of how happy his wife would have been. Of how much work he would have done in the village. And they ended up dismissing these thoughts deep in their hearts. The oldest woman among them said, "He has the face of someone called Esteban," with a sigh. All but one agreed. The one who disagreed named him Lautaro, but she had to be wrong. They were all sure that he was an Esteban. As they dragged Esteban down in the ground, they understood how much suffering he must have endured due to his big size in this small world. Later, when they put a handkerchief on his face, he looked so defenseless and dead that the younger ones couldn't hold their tears back. As time passed, more and more of the women began to cry for this man that was no longer a stranger but more of an Esteban to them. Later, when the man returned empty-handed because no one knew who this man was, the women said, "He is ours." They were planning to throw Esteban off of a cliff, so they tied an anchor from a cargo ship. Since there was accidents in the past, that the deceased would come back to the shore. As they climbed the cliff, the woman tried to do anything to waste time. One of the women removed the handkerchief from the man. That's when the men of the village recognized him as Esteban. At Esteban's final moments, the village was too sad to say goodbye to him as an orphan, so they picked a mother and a father among the best people of them. They let him go without an answer so that he would come back whenever he wished. Then they watched as Esteban fell into the abyss.